Hello children, welcome back. Hope you are staying safe and doing good. Before entering into today's session, let us have a quick recap on last class. In last class, we have discussed about the narrator, like how he bought the old desk and in which condition it was. He found an envelope written by Jim McPherson to Connie McPherson, and how and why, where she safeguarded it. And today we are going to discuss part 2. This is all about the letter which is written by Jim McPherson to Connie. In that particular letter, he clearly explained each and every moment on how he celebrated his Christmas with the German soldiers in the war field rather than fighting. Here comes the second part of the lesson. Let me read now. Dearest Connie, I write to you in a much happier frame of mind because something wonderful has just happened that I must tell you about at once. We were all standing in our trenches yesterday morning, Christmas morning. Underline the word trenches. It was crisp and quite all about as beautiful a morning as I have ever seen, as cold and frosty as a Christmas morning should be. Coming to the explanation part. Children, the second part of the lesson starts here. And this is the actual letter written by Jim McPherson to his wife. In that letter he wrote, Dearest Connie, something wonderful has happened today, and with an addition, he wrote that he was in a happy mood while he was writing that letter. Here, Jim belongs to British Army. He explained his wife that both the teams are standing in their trenches. Children, here trenches means it is a space dug in ground so that the soldiers have a safe place to hide from enemies. Understood? It is a small place dug in the ground and it will be covered with some sort of plants or sandbags, etc., where our soldiers will hide from the enemies. He also described that Christmas morning. He described that particular Christmas morning as it is a crisp, quiet, beautiful, cold and frosty, like exact how a Christmas morning should be. Now coming to the text part, I should like to be able to tell you that we began it, but the truth, I am ashamed to say, is that Fritz began it. First someone saw a white flag waving from the trenches opposite. Children, underline the word Fritz there. Then they were calling out to us from across no man's land, Happy Christmas, Tommy! Happy Christmas! When we had got over the surprise, some of us shouted back, Same to you, Fritz, same to you. I thought that would be that. We all did. But then suddenly one of them was up there in his grey greatcoat and waving a white flag. Don't shoot, lads. Come on, shouted. Someone shouted. And no one did. Then there was another Fritz up on the parapet and another, Keep your heads down. I told the men, it's a trick, but it wasn't. Children, underline the word Tommy also in this paragraph. Now coming to the explanation part. Children, before I start my explanation to this pair, I would like to introduce the words Fritz and Tommys. Here, Fritz and Tommy are a sort of common nicknames given to the soldiers. For that particular army, they will give that name. For example, these German soldiers were called as Fritz and British soldiers were called as Tommies. So the Tommies is given to the British soldiers and Fritz is the name given to the German soldiers. So, be cautious with these two names because throughout the lesson these two names Fritz and Thomas will be coming over and over again. Now explanation part. As it was a Christmas Eve, both the teams of soldiers were happy. Both the armies were happy. Suddenly, Jim's team, that is our British team, noticed from far that one of the German soldier was waving a white flag. Children, white flag. White flag means they don't want any war at present. They wanted something. They wanted to convey something. It means they want peace for some time and they need to talk. So before meeting an army, an enemy army, if they show a white flag, they will not use any weapons or they will not shoot the opposite team. But these British soldiers thought that they were playing some tricks to attack them cunningly. That is why they are showing a white flag. They didn't believe. Now, one by one from the German team was coming out of the trenches and approaching British team. So all these one by one from the German team are coming up out of their trenches and they were walking towards the British team. And all the way through while they were walking, they were waving the white flag. After seeing that, the British soldiers also kept their weapons down and came out of their trenches. And both the teams met in particular area. Children, here I ask you to underline no man's land. No man's land means it is an area. It is a place which doesn't belong to both the countries. And it lies between the boundaries at the center of the both armies, both countries. It lies between the boundaries of the two countries and that is the place where both Thomas and Fritz met. And that particular place is called no man's land. These German soldiers, when they were approaching Tommy's, they wished them loudly, "Happy Christmas, Tommy, Happy Christmas." And Thomas too replied, "Same to you, Fritz, same to you." Someone among them also shouted that, "Don't shoot, lads." Here lads means friends. So one of the German soldier was shouting, "Don't shoot, lads." As Tommy was doubting, as our Tommies were doubting that they were playing some tricks against them, but nothing had happened. Nothing tricks has been played. Coming to the next para, one of the Germans was waving a bottle above his head. "It is Christmas Day, Tommy. We have schnapps. We have sausage." Underline the word schnapps. Schnapps means it's a sort of drink. And we have sausage. Underline the word sausage. Sausage is some sort of meat used in dishes, used to prepare some dishes. "We meet you." Yes, by this time there were dozens of them walking towards us across no man's land and not a rifle between them. Underline the word rifle, guys. Here the rifle means a small gun which can be carried, or it refers to some big guns also. Little Private Morris was the first up. "Come on, boys, what are we waiting for?" And then there were no stopping them. I was the officer. I should have stopped them there and then, I suppose. But the truth is that it never even occurred to me I should. All along their line and ours, I could see men walking slowly towards one another, grey coats, khaki coats meeting in the middle. And I was one of them. I was part of this. In the middle of the war, we were making peace. Explanation. Children, here both the armies started talking between each other. They started meeting in the no man's land. Soon they shook their hands, they greeted themselves, wished themselves, and began chatting and enjoying. Soon they started enjoying and sharing their schnapps. As I said you, schnapps is a sort of drink. And they said shared their sausage. Sausage means it's a kind of non-veg. It's made of meat or chicken. So none of them were carrying weapons with them. None of them were carrying guns with them. They trusted, both the armies trusted each other and started enjoying themselves without weapons. So both the teams in grey coat and khaki coat, their sort of uniform is in grey color, and the other army, they are wearing khaki coats. So that's why we are mentioning that. Both the teams in grey coats and khaki coats were talking and walking along the no man's land. Jim also added that he too was there, one among them. He was also one among the group and making peace in the middle of the war. The text part. You cannot imagine, dearest Connie, my feelings as I looked into the eyes of the Fritz officer who approached me, hand outstretched. Hans Wolf, he said, gripping my hand warmly and holding it. I am from Dusseldorf. Underline the word Dusseldorf, children. It is a place in Germany. I play the cello in the orchestra. Underline the word orchestra. It is a music, it's like a sort of music troupe. Happy Christmas. Happy Christmas, Captain Jim McPherson, I replied. And a happy Christmas to you too. I am a school teacher from Dorset in the west of England. Explanation. In this para, children, Jim is talking about his personal experience with his new friend Hans Wolf. He told that he had been friended with one of the Fritz named Hans Wolf from Dusseldorf. He was also good in playing cello in the orchestra. It means Hans Wolf introduced himself as he was from Dusseldorf and he used to play cello in the orchestra before joining the army. And he wished Jim happy Christmas. Here both of them shook their hands and introduced themselves. And Jim McPherson also introduced himself as he was a school teacher from Dorset. Hans Wolf from Dusseldorf. Hans Wolf is from Dusseldorf and here Jim McPherson is from Dorset. Text part. Oh, Dorset, he smiled. I know this place. I know it very well. We shared my rum ration and his excellent sausage. And we talked. Connie, how we talked? He spoke almost perfect English. But it turned out that he had never set foot in Dorset, never even been to England. He had learned all he knew of England from school and from reading books in English. His favorite writer was Thomas Hardy. His favorite book, Far from the Madding Crowd. So out there in no man's land, we talked of Bathsheba and Gabriel Oak and Sergeant Roy and Dorset. He had a wife and one son, born just 6 months ago. As I looked about me, there were huddles of khaki and grey everywhere. Underline the word huddles, children. Huddles means a group. All over no man's land, smoking, laughing, talking, drinking, eating. Hans Wolf and I shared what we left of your wonderful Christmas cake, Connie. He thought the marzipan was the best he had ever tasted. Underline the word marzipan, children. Here marzipan means it is a layer which covers the cake. It's like a cream like layer. Okay. We agreed about everything and he was my enemy. There never was a Christmas party like it, Connie. Explanation. Here in this para, after introducing themselves, Hans Wolf said that he knew Jim's place, that is Dorset, and also being a German, he spoke excellent English, which Jim appreciated. Both of them started sharing their drinks, sausages. They also shared their views, like shared their tastes and ideas which they would like and dislikes. Like they shared their likes and dislikes and they shared their views on books and authors. Soon they found there were many similar qualities between these two and they felt like they were no more enemies. Actually, they were enemies, but at that moment they felt like they were no more enemies. Hans Wolf told that he had a wife and a 6-month-old son. Here Hans Wolf said that he has a wife and a 6-month-old son. While talking, Jim just raised his head and looked around and just to notice what is happening around them. And he saw huddles of khaki and grey everywhere. Children, huddles means group, a group of people, group of greys and khakis means group of German soldiers and a group of British soldiers. So those Frigs and Tommies were that groups, that huddles of armies, huddles of team. So those huddles of khakis and greys were smoking, laughing, eating and drinking. They are enjoying. He also mentioned in this letter that he had shared the cake which was given by Connie. And Hans appreciated the taste of marzipan as the best he had ever tasted. Here, Jim was telling that Hans Wolf tasted the cake which was given by Connie as a Christmas gift. And this man, who is that? Hans Wolf tasted the marzipan. Marzipan is a layer on the cake, like it adds some sort of a good taste, extra taste and attraction. And it's just like a cream added with nuts. And this fellow, Hans Wolf, after tasting that, he said that it was the best one which he had ever tasted. Jim felt that they never had a Christmas party like that. It means like they never celebrated like this Christmas with the enemy troop. Okay. Now coming to the text part. Then someone, I don't know who, brought out a football. Great coats were dumped in piles to make goalposts, and the next thing we knew it was Tommy against Fritz out in the middle of no man's land. Hans Wolf and I looked on and cheered, clapping our hands and stamping our feet to keep out the cold as much as anything. There was a moment when I noticed our breath mingling in the air between us. Underline the word mingling, children. Here mingling means mixing. He saw it too and smiled. Jim McPherson. He said after a while, I think this is how we should resolve this war. Underline the word resolve. Resolve means solving. Solving it back. Solving the issue. A football match. No one dies in a football match. No children are orphaned. Underline the word orphaned. No wives become widows. Underline the word widows also, children. Explanation. Jim told, someone brought a football. Someone from the German team brought a football and two armies were preparing for a football match. Like they are preparing, digging the goal poles to get ready for the football match. So both were preparing for a football match. Soon the two teams started playing. Jim and Hans Wolf were cheering them, encouraging them like clapping their hands, tapping their feet. He also noticed their breaths were mingling in the air. Here mingling, as I said, it's a mixing. They can notice that their breaths were mixing in the air as they both were sitting close. Maybe in the opposite, I think they were sitting in the opposite direction. In that cold night, they can feel that their breaths were mixing. Understood? And here Hans Wolf told some touching words. Very, very heart touching words. That is, this is how we should resolve the war. Resolve means, I told you, right? Solving a problem or solving an issue. Because only win and lose will be there in the football match. If they start playing football or cricket like that, there will be only win and lose between those two things, those two teams. There will be only win and lose. No one will be what? No one dies. It means in the football match, if they are just competing between those two teams, only win or loss, and none will die in that match, and no children were orphaned. Orphan means children left alone without parents, like children who don't have parents are called orphans, and no wives become widows. Widows means a married woman who is not having a husband, like after marriage, if her husband is died, she will be considered as a widow. Text part. I would prefer cricket. I told him, then we Tommies could be sure of winning probably. We laughed at that and together we watched the game. Sad to say, Connie, Fritz won. 2-1. But as Hans Wolf generously said, our goal was wider than theirs. So it wasn't quite fair. Explanation. As Hans Wolf said that those touching words, actually it was really a very good thought which Jim agreed to. Because as he said that football match or cricket, whatever match it may be, it will be a best thing to resolve the war, and that is what Jim too agreed. And here in this para, Jim said to Hans Wolf that he would prefer cricket and they could sure be winning. They could be winning also. They both smiled and no longer they found. They both smiled at what Jim said that he would prefer cricket and their team will be winning. For that instant, they both smiled and no longer they found Fritz won the game. While they were talking itself, they found that Fritz won the game and Jim felt sad. Why? Because British team lost their game and the German team won the game. But Hans Wolf told generously. He was a kind man. He told generously, Tommy's goal was wider than Fritz. So it was quite natural for the Germans to win the game. Text part. The time came, and all too soon, when the game was finished, the schnapps and the rum and the sausage had long since run out. Underline the 4 words, ma. Long since run out. Mainly underline the word run out. And we knew it was all over. I wished Hans well and told him, I hoped he would see his family again soon, that the fighting would end and we could all go home. Coming to the explanation part, children, now the game was over and they declared it as Fritz won and Tommy lost the game. So the game was over, and by the end, when Fritz won the game and both the armies agreed to that they had won the game, and all the drinks like sausages, cakes, the schnapps, the drinks, everything were over. And everything was almost over, and it was the time for the two teams, it was a time for the two armies to go back to their respective places in the sense to their respective trenches. Actually they are standing in the no man's land at the borders of their country, and now it's time for them to leave that no man's land and go back to their respective places. Both Jim and Hans Wolf wished each other by shaking their hands and wished themselves warmly that they would see their families very soon. It means the war would be soon over, and by the next year they would go safe and meet their families. Yeah, coming to the test part, I think that is what every soldier wants on both sides. Hanswell said, "Take care, Jim McPherson. I shall never forget this moment, nor you." He saluted and walked away from me. Slowly, unwillingly, I felt. He turned to wave just once and then became one of the hundreds of grey-coated men drifting back towards their trenches. Children, underline the word unwillingly and drifting. And here, as we all know, each and every soldier in the army wished the same. They always wanted to reach their home safely and spend their days happily with their families. Even though they work for the countries, they knew that the whatever may happen in the boundaries, but always they would wish for the same thing and the one thing, to meet their families safe. And Jim said that it is what every soldier wants and wished for. And as it was time to leave, Hanswell said, "Take care, Jim. I will never forget the moment, nor you," because he felt that it was a precious moment which led the peace for a while in the war field. He saluted and walked away unwillingly. Unwillingly means he is not willing to go because he loved that friendship. He is not willing to go, but he had to go. Text part. That night, back in our dugouts, underline the word dugout, we heard them singing a carol and singing it quite beautifully. It was still night, silent night. Our boys gave them a rousing chorus of Wild Shepherd's Watch. We exchanged carols for a while and then we all fell silent. We had our time of peace and goodwill, a time I will treasure as long as I live. Explanation. Everyone returned to their dugouts. Children, dugouts mean trenches. As we have discussed earlier, trenches means a pit dug in the ground for the soldiers to hide from enemies. So after reaching the trenches, both armies didn't sleep. They were very happy. They started singing their carols. Underline the word carols. Carols means singing songs. Like they will be having some sort of national song which they will be singing in the churches on Christmas Eve. Here German soldiers, the Fritz were singing Still Nacht. Still Nacht is a German word and in English it is called as Silent Night. Whereas Tommies were singing While Shepherds Watch. After a moment, they exchanged their songs. Both were exchanging their carols and singing the other country's carols for a while. Started singing the other country's songs also for a while, and later they slept. And that was a silent night. And here Jim highlighted something. He highlighted that it would be a precious memory for him and he would treasure it as long as he lived. Why did Jim say those words? He used that sort of phrase because he really felt that that memory was so precious because they had maintained peace, they had maintained a good friendship on the warfield for some time, that too on the Christmas Eve. So that is, he think that is the best memory he had ever experienced and he wanted to treasure it as long as he lived. Text part. Dearest Connie, by Christmas time next year, this war will be nothing but a distant and terrible memory. I know from all that happened today how much both armies long for peace. Children, underline the word long. Here long means it is not a distance or length. It is the meaning of this long is waiting, like waiting for peace, awaiting for something else. We shall be together again soon. I am sure of it. Your loving Jim. Children, we have come to the end of the letter. This is the last para of the letter mentioned. And in that letter, Jim has promised to Connie. He has promised to Connie that for the next Christmas, Jim would meet Connie and would be spending that Christmas happily together again. So with that promise, he ended the letter with a small phrase, that is, your loving Jim. Children, these parts, this promise which Jim made will be the reason for the occurrence of part 3. Understood? Children, this is the end of part 2 and let us conclude with a small recap. In this particular letter, Jim McPherson clearly explained each and every moment he had experienced that day on Christmas Eve. Like how he enjoyed and celebrated his Christmas with the German soldiers by laughing, drinking and playing football rather than fighting. So this is what he mentioned in that letter. And in the next session, we are going to discuss about how the narrator finds the woman and returns the letter to her. And then how Mrs. Coney confuses him with her husband, and also on the other hand, she will be very excited to see him. So children, let us close today's session. And then as usual, you have to go through the lesson and complete the activity questions given below in this slide. Number 1. Why do Jim and Hans think that games or sports are good ways of resolving conflicts? Do you agree? Second one. Do you think the soldiers of the two armies are like each other or different from each other? Find evidence from the story to support your answer. Number 3. Mention the various ways in which the British and the German soldiers become friends and find things in common at Christmas. Children, for these questions, you have to frame your own answers and write down. As usual, you have to note it down in an A4 sheet with the reference of the textbook, so that at the end of the lesson, we can discuss the answers. Okay children, so for every part I will be giving you some activity questions which is given in page number 16 in textbook. You have to answer, you have to frame your own answers and then file those A4 sheets safely. Okay children? Thank you so much children. Have an astounding day.